we are reading from the Yoga Sutras. This is our online class number 30. We are studying the second chapter, aphorism number 37 onwards. We will continue with our study of the first limb of yoga, that is called the Yama. Yama is a set of 5 disciplines for external purification. So far, we have studied the first 2 components, the practices of ahimsa or non-violence and satyam, truthfulness. Now comes asteya, non-stealing. What special thing will happen to us if we are established in non-stealing, asteya? So the Yoga Sutra aphorism number 37 goes like this. Asteya pratisthayam sarvaratna upasthanam. By the establishment of non-stealing, all wealth comes to the yogi. Let me see what Swami Vivekananda says about this. He says that the more you fly from nature, the more she follows you. And if you do not care for the nature at all, she works at your wish. There was one Swami Akhandananda in the Ramakrishna order of monks. He was a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. Once one of his disciples, means one of Swami Akhandananda's disciples, asked him, Swamiji, please give me a piece of advice that I should follow in my life, throughout my life. Swami Akhandanandaji told him, my dear, I tell you one thing. If you do not want anything, you will get everything. If you do not want anything, you will get everything. Yes, that is the experience of me and all other monks too. One has to be established in the practice of asteya, not taking anything that is not due. A virtue that comes under the group or limb called Yama. Commentator Vyasa says, if a yogi is established in non-stealing, then treasures like jewels, money, etc., of all varieties and from all places will be given to him or her, to that yogi. Treasures of all varieties means both conscious and unconscious priceless things. What are the conscious treasures? They are the devotees. For the yogi, they are the devotees, friends of the yoga scriptures, of the yoga philosophy, yoga practices, disciples or followers of such yogis. They are the conscious treasures. They are called human resources, the conscious jewels. There was one Swami Swarupanandaji. He was one of the disciples of Swami Vivekananda. After Swarupanandaji's joining the order, Swami Vivekananda remarked, today we have made an acquisition. A conscious position is like this, an acquisition, he said. Unconscious treasures means these are unconscious things like donation or gift of material things or money and such other things. Whatever such yogis desire, wherever such yogis go, they are appreciated. People are attracted to them. They are trusted by people. That is why people give them money or gifts for using those in holy purposes. They trust the yogis, these people. Then we move to aphorism number 38. It says, Brahmacharya pratisthayam virya labha. Brahmacharya pratisthayam virya labha. The meaning is, by the establishment of continence, energy is gained. Swami Vivekananda said, the chaste brain has tremendous energy and gigantic willpower. Without chastity, there can be no spiritual strength. Continence gives us wonderful control over mankind. The spiritual leaders of men have been very continent. And this is what gave them power. Therefore, the yogi must be continence, must practice brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is translated as chastity or continence. Those who practice this vow are called brahmachari or brahmacharini in feminine gender. According to the Sanskrit rules of sandhi, means joining, and samasa, that is also the rules of joining and disjoining compound words. The compound word brahmachari is derived by using the words Brahman plus char. Char with the ending nini. This is nini pratyaya. This is the ending. Suffixes. The ending is called pratyaya or suffix in English. Brahman means the ultimate reality that we know. And char word is a verb which means to move, to go. And from where the word charaiveti came, the famous word charaiveti, continue to move on. And here char will actually mean to continue to live in Brahman. Brahmachari is to continue to live in Brahman. A person who continues to live in Brahman is called a brahmachari. And anyone can be a brahmachari in that sense. The main words here are Brahman, the conscious reality, and char is the verb action. The brahmachari, a brahmachari or a brahmacharini is the one who is continuously practicing to retain all his or her physical and mental energies for the use of spiritual practices. These practices are meant for helping an aspirant to attain the knowledge of Brahman, or according to the dual interpretation, to realize God. It will help the person to realize God. Okay? So now the question is, what are the physical and mental energies you are talking about? This has to be answered. And we will seek an answer to it. Before doing so, I beg your pardon that I have to be a bit blunt or a bit open about things that we do not express openly, and hence we try to hint at them, due mainly to social courtesy and ethical considerations of different types. I will have to use some taboo words to be precise in this matter, because brahmacharya is a serious subject and we should know the truth. In many religions, brahmacharya or maintaining continence is called a virtue or a holy vow. In Buddhism, it is prescribed as one of the 5 values, Panchashila. They constitute the 5 basic ethical codes to be followed by the lay followers of Buddhism. To be followed by the lay followers of Buddhism. These precepts are our commitments to abstain from, number 1, panatipata. This is the Pali version of the Sanskrit word. Prana atipata. Prana means the life. Killing living beings. One has to abstain from killing living beings. Then number 2, adinnadana means not stealing, means abstain from stealing. Number 3, kameshu michhachara. Michhachara means mithyachara in Sanskrit. Means one has to restrain oneself from indiscipline in respect of fulfilling lustful desires. The number 4 is mushabada. Mushabada means mithya bhashanam, that is called lying. One has to refrain oneself from or remain away from lying. And the 5th of Panchashila, 5th one is Sura Meraya Majja Pamadathana, means taking intoxicating drinks and drugs which lead to pamada or pramada in Sanskrit, confusion or delusion. These contain the codes of mostly the 10 commandments of the Abrahamic religions, and also can be found in the ethical codes of Confucianism. Hinduism has recommended brahmacharya as the main vow in 3 of the 4 ashramas or stages of life. In 3 of them, brahmacharya ashrama, vanaprastha ashrama and sannyasa ashrama. Brahmacharya ashrama, the stage of a novice or a student. Vanaprastha ashrama means stage of a retired person. And sannyasa ashrama is the stage of a renunciate or monk. For the grihastha ashrama, that is this is one of the 4 ashramas, and this is the main ashrama for those who will follow the 4 values like dharma, artha, kama, moksha together. So this grihastha ashrama or the married stage of life, that is one of the 4 stages, as we have said, that lead a Hindu to ultimate spiritual liberation called moksha. And there one is advised to maintain brahmacharya, excepting for progeny or propagating the species. In Christianity too, brahmacharya is prescribed. Saint Paul advises the Christians, saying, I say therefore to the unmarried and the widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. But if they cannot contain, let them marry. For The famous sentence comes here, it is better to marry than to burn. The Yoga Sutras also says that if one practices, says means here in this aphorism number 38 in the second chapter, it says that if one practices brahmacharya in thought, word and deed for 12 years, one gains tremendous energy and willpower. Such yogis also gain other spiritual powers like convincing others by their words, etc. Mahatma Gandhi, during our time, who was a householder himself, was one of the great advocates of brahmacharya. In his autobiography known as My Experiments with Truth, Gandhiji devoted 2 chapters to this topic, brahmacharya. His views on this are important because he was a householder. He practiced it successfully and then he recommended it for those who would practice truth and ahimsa. Very clearly he said it there. Who would practice truth and ahimsa and satya, they should follow the rules of brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is the other name for the conquest of lust. Lust in human mind manifests in sexuality, which has gone through both biological and sociological evolutions ever since the species of the Homo sapiens came into being. According to Darwin, we have inherited from our primitive ancestors 2 instincts, the survival instinct and the sex instinct. The mode of reproduction or propagation of the same species, which is called mutation, like cell divisions, evolved from asexually reproducing forms of the amoeba, the unicellular organism. But the sex instinct has its roots in our most primitive multicellular living forms, which first learned the sexual mode of reproduction. We may recall that the atomic disaster at Chernobyl, Ukraine, the then Soviet Union, happened in April 1986. Some about 7 years after the Chernobyl disaster. It was reported that a special type of asexual or non-sexual worms adopted the mode of multiplying themselves following the process of sexual reproduction. These worms were originally non-sexual worms. The report first appeared in the April 24, 2003 issue of the Sydney Morning Herald under the title Worms Find Chernobyl Fallout a Turn On. The report goes like this, I quote, Kyiv, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster has radically changed the lives of worms in the region, which now enjoy more sex, Ukrainian scientists said today. Scientists in Sebastopol have compared the way worms reproduce around Chernobyl, where radioactivity levels in the soil are 100 times higher than normal, with their cousins elsewhere. Nearly a quarter of irradiated, means not affected by radiation, worms are seeking out partners, both of which are originally non-sexuals, to reproduce sexually rather than asexually, against 5% in less affected areas, the research showed. This is because sexual reproduction allows the worms to transmit their most radioactivity resistant genes to their offsprings, giving them the most chances of adapting to their new environment. Unquote. This report shows that sexual instinct is not an absolute necessity for mutation or reproduction of our own species, and much less just for the satisfaction of our lust. This is an episode of evolutionary necessity for better survival chance, not for satisfaction of mere lustful desires. Multicellular organisms like us humans can choose the way they would meet the requirements of their biological evolution, like natural selection, struggle for existence, survival of the fittest. On the other hand, humans are also social animals. Animals are governed by herd instinct, the instinct or an inherent tendency to congregate or to react together. But this instinct is conflicted by sexual instinct. In the primitive human society, social harmony was continuously disrupted by our competition for the mate, which is seen even today among animals, primates, etc. This was a big problem for us, the social animals. For the sake of social harmony and peace in life, humans developed and introduced the institution of marriage, which is gradually refined and sanctified by religious approvals. Rules, punishment, and penalties have been developed to guard the social need of curbing our sexual urge to its limits. These have been supported by promulgation of laws and religious condemnations or disapprovals. There is the proverbial saying, an idle mind is devil's workshop. Hence, a corrective method should not only denounce the present habits and impulses, but should also provide an alternative to form other or good habits, a beautiful solution. Psychology and religious clarifications have helped us to understand how the psychic human energy associated with sexual desire, urge, and drives can be harnessed and channelized for other or higher purposes. The same energy could be used for spiritual purposes, which are sure means to produce more joy and at the same time to introduce us to a better way of reaching far greater fulfillment. This is the way human beings tried very hard to rise above their animal nature of eating, sleeping, fear, and sex. And this is the justification why they tried to conquer lust, unrestrained lust. But this created another problem. It is not to be understood that all human beings are available for following this necessity of curbing the urge of sex or lust. At the same time, when society considered sex a taboo, problems arose. There were problems for those who are not driven by the basic ideals of the evolution of human society for a peaceful, respectful, and interdependent living. Sexual perversions, sex-related crimes, repressions, hypocrisy, disorders, etc., were the outcome of such a mindset. As usual, these people have their own view of life, which is akin to crass materialism. They may argue, saying, "Look, we are not to be condemned like that. See, it took us so long to evolve into a higher version of animals called the Homo sapiens, almost infinitely capable of voraciously enjoying life the way we like. It is you people who do not know how to make the best use of human body and life until the end. That is why you bring the concepts of morality, ethical values, etc. to justify your incompetence." True, though unfortunately so. Then came Freud with his epoch-making discoveries of the unconscious mind and the concepts of libido, id, eros, psychosexual stages, etc. So today humanity has reached a stage where we have started looking upon sex as just a means of fun or recreation. We have started disregarding its biological, moral, ethical, and spiritual values, which are the very foundation of it. Today, there can be sex without parenthood. On the other hand, one can become a parent without sex, and so on and so forth. Hence, the concept of brahmacharya or continence, that is human restraints in sexual behavior, are being looked down upon, disapproved, or even hated. These laws are also changing according to new interpretations in this field based on pure personal wish and not on need, human need. It is not only the laws that are changing, but also the whole culture in all its aspects, be it literature, painting, sculpture, music, movies, advertising, etc., and so on. The differences between what is decent and what is vulgar or ugly are getting blurred or are being continuously reinterpreted. No, there is no question of lamentation, but of a real human concern only. If the so unintelligent worms in Chernobyl could bring about a sea change in their biological behavior to save the purity of the species, if they can devise methods to ensure that no radiated or contaminated gene can be propagated further through the line, why can't we? This is now a serious field of study which should be wisely left to real scholars. I do not pretend to be an expert in this subject. Hence, I would prefer to leave it here and follow the topic of brahmacharya further. Now our question is, why do almost all religions of the world insist upon brahmacharya? The simple reason is, almost all religions are meant for helping human beings to rise above body consciousness and attain the transcendental reality called God or the Self. Lust or kama is the grossest expression of body consciousness because it aggressively engages all the sense organs in the physical body. According to non-dual Vedanta, there is no two except for the one reality called Brahman. Hence, the concepts of duality and permanence of the body are unreal or relative. Furthermore, kama or lust is diametrically opposite to the realization of the permanence of our being. even according to dualistic religions, particularly those who believe in rebirth that are prevalent in the Indian subcontinent, including Buddhism. The transmigrating soul is an individualized, sexless consciousness. We have to rise above the idea of any gender in order to realize the freedom of the soul. Spiritual freedom is the freedom from all that is not the soul or the Atman. This freedom has to be practiced in all its forms from the beginning of our spiritual life. Hence, Sri Krishna advises in the Gita that one has to kill the sinful thing called kama or lust that destroys the realization of knowledge. He says, that is the verse translated like this, thus knowing the self which is beyond the intellect, destroy the enemy in the form of lust. Kama rupam durasadam. Destroy the enemy in the form of lust. It is difficult to conquer durasadam. You may recall that Maharshi Patanjali began his Yoga Sutras with the premise that all our thoughts that arise on the surface of our mind have to be restrained and finally stopped. These thoughts can be caused by stimuli or impetus from outside and also from inside our unconscious mind. From the impressions of memory, sexual and aggressive instincts and desires like unacceptable sexual desires, violent motives, irrational wishes, immoral urges, selfish needs, etc. That's how Freud has enlisted these things. According to Freud, the unconscious desires are saved or stored up very deep inside the mind in the region of id. Id is the lowest point or deepest point of the topographical model of mind presented by Freud in the form of an iceberg. Hence, the roots of sex are very deep in the unconscious mind, which are not easy to recognize. As a result, the practice of concentration, meditation, and also the samadhis as recommended by the Yoga Sutras is necessary to root out these unrecognizable, deep-rooted vrittis of desires. Therefore, the great psychologist Patanjali deals with them in the Yoga Sutras. If you summarize the whole teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, the fruit of Sri Krishna's hard labor, it would boil down to one idea. Very simple. He says, my body is impermanent and it is not the real me. That is the idea. My body is impermanent and that is not the real me. You may look very closely at each and every verse told by Sri Krishna in the Gita, and I am sure you will find this one sentence running through all of them. Then he identifies desire as the essence of our body consciousness. And lust or kama is the most belligerent, aggressive, and the essence of desires. In the very beginning of the Gita, that is in the second chapter, towards the end, Sri Krishna says, Vishaya vinivartante, etc., etc. From the abstinent or ascetic soul, sense objects fall away, but not the taste for them. When the supreme truth is realized, even the taste also departs. The idea is maintaining indifference or vairagya rigorously from objects of enjoyments is not the ultimate remedy for the thirst for sensuous enjoyments. These instinctive urges and subtle hankerings continue to be in our mind and draw us away when they get the upper hand at some time or other. Only spiritual realization, the experience that one is the spirit and not the body, can uproot them completely. One is the spirit and not the body. That is the message Sri Krishna says in this chapter. Freud said, instinct are one of the contents of the unconscious mind. That is why more than 1,000 years before Freud, Sri Krishna asked us to be watchful about the damaging instincts with the help of a discerning intellect. Then only one is able to understand the meaning of karma, human actions, and of course karma yoga. Instinctive actions or karmas are produced by involuntary autonomous or autonomic nervous system. That is the modern medical science. We have little power to deny their commands. Instinctive behavior are signs of our animalistic nature. As long as we are governed by our animal nature, we tend to go along the directions of our instincts without caring for the warnings of the scriptures or the teachers to the contrary. We as human beings need to pull ourselves out of the mire or deep pool of instincts with the help of intellectual discernment, and then practice real karma and later karma yoga. Patanjali says that there are 5 types of kleshas or causes of suffering. We have read this already. Raga or attachment due to attraction and engagement is one of these kleshas. Ignorance about the permanence of the self or Atman, which is called avidya, is the root cause of these. Lust is one such raga which, they say, produces the maximum amount of momentary pleasure. Our conquest of lust surely helps us to reduce the effect of avidya, ignorance. Until and unless avidya is eradicated, there is no question of conquering lust. Shankaracharya reminds us of this small but most powerful chain. Avidya, kama, karma. Ignorance about the impermanence of the body, desire and action. The Tantra scriptures say that brahmacharya is of vital importance in order to awaken the Kundalini power. As you know, Kundalini is the coiled up psychic power or energy that lies dormant at the root of the spinal column called Mooladhara. Kundalini awakens to the highest chakra called Sahasrara on the tip of one's head by coursing through 4 other intermediate chakras or stages. Generally, our mind likes to dwell in the lowest 3 chakras, which lay below one's navel in the belly region. These lower chakras correspond to mostly instinctive functions of eating, sleeping and reproduction. All the chakras above the navel are places of the mind where the pleasure is progressively greater than lustful enjoyments. According to such discoveries and experiences by religious geniuses, it is clear that it is not through sex that one derives the maximum pleasure. And finally, when one is able to give up all desires, when one is able to give up, relinquish all desires, one attains the highest pleasure called bliss. The Taittiriya Upanishad has given an account of progressively greater pleasures in different higher states of mind. But at each level of such greater pleasures also, the pleasure of the akamahata, desireless one, has been praised to be the highest. There is no comparison for that. Among the 5 Yama principles or moral values, it is only Brahmacharya which has a physiological dimension, and that is studied by Ayurveda, that is Indian medical science. It speaks of 7 dhatus or elements that are derived from food. These dhatus or elements, each earlier dhatu producing the later one in the chain, finally produce reproductive ingredients finally. If our body does not misuse these resources, they are converted into ojas or very subtle energy. This ojas has both physical and psychological dimensions. It gives the body its shine and charm, the intellect its sharpness, heightens the memory, and conduces to general serenity and blissfulness. Hence, excessive use of these reproductive ingredients called shukra or fluid would weaken the preceding dhatus. Thereby, it deteriorates the whole body by producing imbalance in the normal mechanical or chemical system of body culture. It is therefore expressly advised in Ayurveda that one should practice restraint in this matter, which is the other name for brahmacharya or continence. Apparently, there is no parallel confirmation of this inner process of the body by allopathy medical science. It is also not wise to find similarities between these two entirely different systems, modern allopathic medicine and Ayurveda. According to modern physiology, our body is governed by 2 sets of nervous systems. One set is under the voluntary control of the individual, and another is not under the control of us, and it works involuntarily. The involuntary system, called the autonomic nervous system, has 2 components, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. These 2 are highly excited during high emotions like sex, anger, fear, etc., which make our heart beat faster, respiration fast and irregular, increase or decrease in respiration, in perspiration, etc. Repeated stimulation of the autonomic nervous system and the consequent excitation of cardiorespiratory system may ultimately produce damage to these systems and our natural health. For males, lustful thoughts or deeds may produce more than natural secretion of prostate fluid, both in quantity and frequency, and that is damaging for the body. Hence, overindulgence in the activation of such phenomena, as we have considered already, might adversely affect the mental and physical health of an individual. Ojas management, or management of the finest energy called ojas, or its reorientation, will produce greater resistance power and the ability to bear both mental and physical stress and strain. I would humbly remind you that I am not trying to lay greater stress on the physiological aspect of brahmacharya. Still, if one observes restraint in respect of physical aspect of it, and at the same time lead a reckless life in other matters, one is not going to be established in the goal of brahmacharya. That is the meaning of this aphorism. As even one needs to take good care of the body and food, even so one needs to control other desires, which is being prescribed by the yama niyama disciplines and principles. In the play Hamlet by William Shakespeare, Hamlet suggests that human knowledge is limited. Hamlet once said to Horatio, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy," means in your science. If one is in the course of spiritual journey and trying to increase inner peace and real happiness, if one is a spiritual practitioner, one would not risk one's success by such excitements. They are not good for meditation, peace of mind, and not good for removing damaging thoughts from the mind to achieve the state of yoga or samadhi. The Yoga Sutras commentators say, if one cannot control the misuse of one's ojas or special subtle energy, that means if one fails to practice brahmacharya, one's nerves, mental faculties, etc. are weakened and they ultimately lose their essential power that supports spiritual life and the whole life for that matter. Hence Patanjali says, Brahmacharya pratisthayam virya labha. When one is established in continence, special energy is gained. And we were trying to find answer to this question. What is this special energy? Well, the subject can be discussed separately as an independent topic, which is not the necessity for us now. Yet it is more than enough what I have tried to explain here. Hence, I will move to the next aphorism, which is aparigraha. Aparigraha sthairye janma kathanta sambodha. When one is fixed in non-receiving unnecessary possessions, one gets the memory of past life. The knowledge of past life means the answers to our questions like who I was and how I lived in the past life. What is this body after all? What is this present life? How and why did I get this present body? What shall I be in the next life and what will be the situation in which I will be placed? These are just exact translations of the Sanskrit commentary written by Vyasa. These questions show that we will not only know our life or lives of the past, but also our life in this present situation, which we do not know, or much of it we do not know, and also our next life. We will know our Janmantara. Janmantara means, mostly we understand Janmantara means past lives. No. Here the meaning is past, present and future lives. They mean Janmantara. This knowledge leads to the knowledge that we are detached from our bodies in the three divisions of time. Then our mind knows that it is different from the objects and the bodies in the gross bodies in the three divisions of time. This knowledge again helps us to know about our life in Trikala, the present, past and future. We know that our mind is a part of the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira. Mind is part of that subtle body. The subtle body is the body that travels from one gross body to another gross body, from this life to another life. Hence the mind needs to free itself from its attachment to the gross bodies and all the objects that are regarded to be used for the gross body, for the benefit of the gross body. Mind has to detach itself, knowing this, that it has to travel away from this gross body and enter into another gross body, which it cannot determine whether it will be a male body or a female body or any other body. After achieving this, the mind has scope to look beyond this body, beyond this gross body and its objects. Detachment from body consciousness. Then it is convenient for such mind to concentrate in meditation and know about its own transmigration. Transmigration happens to the subtle body and the mind is part of it. Swami Vivekananda said, when a man, that is a practicing yogi, does not receive presents, he does not become beholden to others, but remains independent and free. His mind becomes pure. With every gift, he is likely to receive the evils of the giver. If he does not receive, the mind is purified, and the first power it gets is memory of the past life. Then alone the yogi becomes perfectly fixed in his ideal. He sees that he has been coming and going many times. So he becomes determined that this time he will be free, that he will no more come and go and be the slave of nature. And nature, we know, is the producer of these gross bodies. So far, Patanjali spoke about the achievements about Yama, a set of disciplines. We have said that Yama is a set of disciplines and Niyama is a set of rules. Now begins the achievement of Niyama, a set of rules. So we begin with the second limb of the yoga practice, that is called Niyama. This set of 5 rules would help us purify ourselves internally. We have discussed earlier that the external purifications that are done by the Yama disciplines, they are so important, and they should be supported by the rules of internal cleaning. Otherwise, the external efforts will not be effective and will not be sustainable. And the result will be a disappointing one and an end of yoga itself. The niyamas are, so we move to aphorism number 40. Shauchat swanga jugupsa paraira sangsargaha. Internal and external cleanliness being established, there arises disgust that one thought of one's own body as permanent, and also one rejects non-spiritual attachment with others. Shaucha, or cleanliness of the body, mind and speech, helps a yogi to get rid of animalistic love, a love mostly established at the physical level. But we have to remember that the qualities of Maitri, or friendliness, Karuna, compassion, Mudita, etc., they are expressions of love, are qualities that are prescribed by the Yoga Sutras, because they are not going to bind us. They are non-sensuous or are not limited to the physical body. They are the expressions of love of the yogis, which rather help him or her to practice detachment. A yogi's desire to have the company of his or her own near and dear ones will not be bound by or limited to physical considerations. Swami Vivekananda goes still further, and I quote, "What the world calls a very common face, he, a yogi, regards it as heavenly, if the spirit shines behind it. This thirst after body is the great bane of human life, he says. So the first sign of the establishment of purity is that you do not care to think you as a body. It is only when purity comes that we get rid of the body idea. Unquote. Well, we have come to the end of our time, so I would stop here and continue next time with the same thing for some time. And I thank you very much for your participation. I will end our discussion chanting Om once. Om